The kingdom of Nyabaha was a land of splendor, ruled by Chief Kwame, a leader known for his wisdom and strength. His people prospered under his rule, and the kingdom thrived with vast fields of golden crops, lively markets filled with traders, and a grand palace that stood as a testament to Nyabaha's power. The chief had everything a ruler could desire: loyal subjects, abundant wealth, and a family that commanded respect. But among all his treasures, none was as precious to him as his only daughter, Amani. Amani was the jewel of the kingdom, admired not only for her breathtaking beauty but also for her intelligence and kindness. Unlike many royal daughters, she was not content with merely being a figure of admiration. She engaged with the people, spoke with the elders, and learned from the wise. She had a heart that cared deeply for the well-being of others, and her sharp mind often challenged the traditions of the court. Her presence alone commanded respect, but it was her spirit that made her truly unforgettable. As Amani came of age, suitors from across the land sought her hand in marriage. Princes arrived from neighboring kingdoms, warriors boasting of their victories came forward, and wealthy merchants offered gifts beyond imagination: rare gems, gold, and luxurious fabrics. The chief, wanting only the best for his daughter, welcomed these powerful men, believing that one among them would surely be worthy of her. But when the time came for Amani to choose, she did something no one expected. She did not choose a prince, nor a warrior, nor a wealthy noble. Instead, she chose a man named Jabari, a simple craftsman known for his humble life, who possessed neither wealth nor title. The news spread like wildfire. The court erupted in disbelief, the noble families whispered in outrage, and the villagers shook their heads in confusion. Why would the daughter of a great chief, one who could have had any man she desired, choose a mere commoner? It was unthinkable. Chief Kwame was stunned. He had given his daughter freedom to choose, believing she would make a wise decision. But this was beyond his comprehension. He called her to him, his voice laced with both anger and disappointment. "My daughter," he said, "you have the power to elevate our kingdom, to forge alliances that will strengthen our people. Why would you throw it all away for a man who has nothing to offer you?" Amani, standing tall and unwavering, met her father's gaze. "He may not have gold or land, but his heart is rich with wisdom, and his hands are skilled with labor. He is kind, honest, and strong in ways that matter more than wealth." The court murmured, unimpressed by her reasoning. But Amani did not waver. She knew what others did not. There was something extraordinary about Jabari, something beyond what the eyes could see. And no amount of opposition would change her heart. The news of Amani's choice spread through the kingdom like wildfire, igniting a storm of speculation and gossip. In the markets, traders paused their bargaining to exchange theories about what had possessed the chief's daughter to choose a poor man over the wealthiest and most powerful suitors. In the village square, elders shook their heads, convinced that she had been bewitched. Among the noble families, mothers whispered warnings to their daughters, using Amani's decision as an example of what not to do. "How can a woman of such status lower herself in this way?" some scoffed. "She must see something in him that we do not," others said. But what could that be? "He is just a simple craftsman with no wealth, no land, no army to command." Despite all the talk, one thing was clear: Amani's decision had unsettled the kingdom. In the royal palace, Chief Kwame sat in deep frustration. He had always trusted his daughter's wisdom, but this was beyond reason. He could not understand why she would choose a commoner when she had been offered princes, warriors, and men of unmatched status. His advisors urged him to forbid the marriage outright, but he was torn between his duty as a ruler and his love as a father. Hoping to make her reconsider, he presented her with a final chance. He summoned the greatest men of the kingdom to a grand feast: warriors who had won countless battles, merchants whose caravans stretched beyond the horizon, and noblemen whose bloodlines were traced back to the gods themselves. Each one was given an opportunity to impress Amani, to show her what life could be like at their side. They spoke of riches, of power, of the luxuries that awaited her if she chose them. Some displayed their strength, boasting of the enemies they had vanquished. Others recited poetry, promising her a love worthy of legends. But through it all, Amani remained unmoved. "I have already chosen," she said, her voice steady. "No amount of wealth or power can change what I know in my heart." Her words only deepened the chief's frustration. But if she would not change her mind willingly, then he would put her beloved to the test. While the kingdom reeled in speculation, Jabari remained unchanged. Each morning he rose before the sun just as he always had. He worked with his hands, carving wood, shaping stone, and weaving baskets that found their way into the homes of the people. If he was affected by the rumors that swirled around him, he did not show it. "Do you not care what they say about you?" an old woman asked him one day as she watched him work. Jabari only smiled. Words do not shape a man's worth. His deeds do. But Amani's friends did not share his calm. They came to her, pleading with her to reconsider. "You deserve a man of greatness, Amani," one said. "He has nothing to offer you," another added. Amani listened, but her heart did not waver. "You see only what he lacks," she said. "But I see what he is." Her father, however, was not yet ready to accept her choice. If Jabari wished to stand beside a chief's daughter, he would have to prove himself worthy. And so, Chief Kwame announced that before any marriage could take place, Jabari would face a series of trials, challenges that would test his strength, his wisdom, and his spirit. The kingdom held its breath. Some believed this was the end of the matter, that Jabari would fail and Amani would have no choice but to move on. Others, however, sensed something unusual about the humble craftsman. And so, as the first trial loomed, the people watched and waited, eager to see if the man who had captured the heart of their princess was truly as ordinary as he seemed, or if he carried a secret that would leave them in awe. The day of the trials arrived, and the entire kingdom gathered to witness them. It was not often that a common man was given a chance to prove himself worthy of a chief's daughter, and most believed that Jabari's failure was inevitable. The tasks set by Chief Kwame were no ordinary challenges. They were legendary trials designed to humble even the mightiest of warriors. The first trial was a hunt, the task of slaying the Nyoka, a fearsome beast that had terrorized the kingdom for generations. The creature was said to be more cunning than any hunter and had evaded capture for years. Warriors who had attempted to slay it never returned, and the mere mention of its name sent shivers through the bravest of men. Armed with only a spear, Jabari ventured into the dense jungle where the beast was last seen. Days passed and whispers spread that he had met his end. But just as doubt began to take hold, Jabari returned, dragging the massive creature behind him. The villagers gasped in disbelief. He had done what no warrior before him had managed. Yet Jabari did not boast. He simply laid the beast before the chief and bowed. "How did you defeat it?" a soldier asked, still in shock. "I listened," Jabari replied simply. "I watched. I learned its movements. And when the moment was right, I struck." His answer puzzled many. How could a mere craftsman outsmart a creature that had outwitted trained hunters? The second trial was even more perilous. Jabari was ordered to fetch water from the forbidden well, a place no man dared approach. The well was said to be cursed, guarded by restless spirits that drove men mad. Some said that those who peered into its depths saw their greatest fears staring back at them. Jabari made his way to the well alone. Those who had gone before him had either vanished or returned screaming in terror. The people whispered that he was doomed. But as the sun began to set, he returned, carrying a jug of water as though he had simply drawn it from any ordinary stream. "How did you survive?" the chief demanded, astonished. "The spirits did not harm me," Jabari said, his voice calm. "Fear is the only true curse. When one walks without fear, the darkness has no power over him." The people murmured among themselves. There was something about this man, something more than just skill or bravery. The final trial was one of wisdom. The chief presented Jabari with an ancient riddle, one that only the wisest sages had ever been able to solve. If he failed, the previous victories would mean nothing. The court fell silent as the riddle was spoken. It was long, complex, and layered with hidden meaning. Many before him had struggled with its depths, but Jabari listened carefully, closing his eyes as he pondered its meaning. Minutes passed. Then, with a steady voice, he gave his answer. A hush fell over the gathering. The elders looked at each other, their faces filled with astonishment. The answer was correct. The kingdom erupted into gasps and cheers. Jabari had succeeded in every trial, trials designed to break him. And yet, he remained humble, as though he had expected nothing less of himself. The whispers began. Who is this man? No ordinary craftsman could have done this. Even the chief himself could no longer deny the truth. There was something extraordinary about Jabari, something beyond the understanding of the people. And for the first time, Chief Kwame felt a deep, unsettling feeling in his chest. Was it admiration or was it fear? The trials had ended, yet the chief remained unsettled. Jabari had succeeded where many great warriors had failed, and he had done so with an ease that defied logic. His skill, his wisdom, and his fearlessness were unnatural for a simple craftsman. Something was amiss. That night, Chief Kwame summoned his most trusted sages, elders who had studied the kingdom's history and legends for generations. "Find out who he truly is," the chief commanded. No man of such skill comes from nowhere. The sages, bound by loyalty and curiosity, began their search. They spoke to travelers, questioned the oldest villagers, and pored over ancient scrolls and records. Days passed and the kingdom buzzed with rumors. The people sensed that something grand was about to be revealed. Then, at last, the truth was uncovered, a truth that sent shockwaves through the kingdom. Jabari was no ordinary man. He was the descendant of a lost royal bloodline, a lineage thought to have perished generations ago. His ancestors had once ruled a neighboring kingdom, a mighty land that had vanished under mysterious circumstances. Some whispered that his family had been betrayed, others believed they had been cursed. What was certain was that long ago, his parents had fled in secrecy, leaving behind their throne and raising their child in obscurity. The sages uncovered old texts that spoke of a prophecy, one that foretold the return of a forgotten heir. The text described a man who would prove his worth through trials of strength, courage, and wisdom. A man who would appear when the kingdom needed him most. It was Jabari. The revelation spread like wildfire. People who had once scorned him now looked at him with reverence. The warriors who had doubted him now bowed their heads in respect. The nobility, who had whispered of his unworthiness, now trembled at the realization of his true status. In the palace, the chief sat in stunned silence. The man he had dismissed as a mere craftsman was, in truth, the heir of a lost kingdom. Perhaps even more shocking, Jabari had never spoken of it, never sought to use his heritage for power. He had lived humbly, relying only on his own strength, his own wisdom. That night, Chief Kwame called Jabari before him. The court was filled with nobles, warriors, and elders, all waiting for the chief's judgment. "You knew of your past," the chief said, his voice steady. "Yet you chose to live as a common man. Why?" Jabari looked at him, his expression calm. "A man is not defined by his birth, but by his actions. I wish to be judged for who I am, not for the name of my ancestors." The words sent a ripple through the court. The chief studied him, his heart conflicted. He had sought to test Jabari, to break him. But instead, he had discovered a man greater than he had imagined. For the first time, Chief Kwame saw him not as a craftsman, not even as a lost prince, but as something more. Perhaps, he thought, Amani had seen the truth all along. The kingdom stood in awe. The poor man they had mocked was, in truth, a legend reborn. The kingdom of Nyabaha was now caught in a storm of uncertainty. The revelation of Jabari's true identity had changed everything. Once dismissed as a lowly craftsman, he was now known as the heir of a lost kingdom, a descendant of rulers long thought to have vanished from history. Yet even with this knowledge, not everyone was willing to accept him. Some saw him as a rightful leader, a man of great wisdom and strength who had proven himself through the trials. They spoke of the prophecy that foretold the return of a forgotten heir, believing that Jabari was destined for something far greater than the life of a simple craftsman. But others were not so willing to embrace him. To them, he was still an outsider, someone who had not been raised among the noble class, who had not been trained in the ways of ruling a kingdom. His bloodline, they argued, did not change the fact that he had lived as a commoner, unworthy of the chief's daughter and unworthy of respect. The court was divided. The people whispered in the streets. The tension in the air was thick, and at the center of it all stood Chief Kwame, burdened with the decision that could shape the future of the kingdom. Should he accept Jabari as a man of worth, despite his humble upbringing? Or should he reject him, refusing to allow a man of unknown loyalty to rise within his court? As the chief struggled with this decision, an enemy lurked in the shadows, ready to exploit the kingdom's doubts. Among the noble families, there was one man who despised Jabari more than anyone else, Lord Baraka, a powerful noble who had long sought to strengthen his influence by marrying his son to Amani. He had watched with growing frustration as Jabari had not only captured the princess's heart but also gained the admiration of the people. And now, with his royal lineage revealed, Jabari was even more of a threat. Baraka could not allow it. One evening he gathered his allies, other nobles who feared losing their power, and devised a plan to undermine Jabari's growing influence. If they could turn the people against him, if they could plant seeds of doubt in the chief's mind, then perhaps they could rid themselves of the craftsman-turned-prince once and for all. Rumors began to spread. Some claimed that Jabari's true goal was to take the throne for himself. Others whispered that he had used trickery to pass the trials, that his victories were not the result of skill but deception. There were even those who said he was cursed, that his return would bring ruin to the kingdom. The lies slithered through the court like venom, poisoning the minds of those already uncertain. But through it all, Jabari remained unchanged. Despite learning of his lost royal lineage, he did not walk with arrogance or demand recognition. He continued his work, continued to treat the villagers with kindness, continued to love Amani with the same sincerity he always had. One evening, Amani found him sitting beneath a great baobab tree on the edge of the village, carving a simple wooden figure with his hands. "You are a prince," she said softly. "And yet you still live as a craftsman." Jabari looked up at her, a small smile on his lips. "I was a craftsman before I knew I was a prince," he replied. "My name may have changed but my heart has not." Amani knelt beside him, taking his hands in hers. "The people doubt you but I do not," she said firmly. "No matter what they say, no matter what trials come, I will stand by you." Her words, spoken with unwavering faith, carried through the kingdom. The people, once torn by doubt, began to see the truth. They had judged Jabari by his status, by the wealth he did not possess. But those things had never defined him. He had proven his worth long before they knew of his past, not through riches but through his actions. One by one the voices of opposition grew quieter. The villagers who had once gossiped about him now spoke of his wisdom. The warriors who had doubted his strength now recalled his victories. Even among the nobles, there were those who began to question whether they had misjudged him. And finally, Chief Kwame himself stood before his people and made his decision. "Power does not make a man great," he declared. "Blood does not make a man wise. It is the strength of his spirit, the purity of his heart, and the courage of his actions that define him." The chief turned to Jabari, his eyes filled with something different than before. Not doubt, not resistance, but acceptance. "You have proven yourself in ways that no title or wealth ever could," he said. "And for that, I welcome you as one of us." A cheer erupted from the crowd, and the kingdom, once divided, now stood together in awe of the man who had defied all expectations. Jabari, the humble craftsman, had become a legend. The kingdom of Nyabaha had begun to accept Jabari, but fate was not done testing him. Just as peace seemed to settle, a great calamity struck, a crisis that threatened to undo everything. Dark clouds gathered over the land, and the winds howled with an unnatural force. The rivers, once abundant, began to dry up. The crops withered in the fields, and hunger crept into the homes of even the wealthiest families. But the greatest threat of all came from the north, where war drums echoed across the plains. A rival kingdom, long jealous of Nyabaha's prosperity, saw the kingdom's struggles as an opportunity to invade. Their warriors, fierce and ruthless, marched toward the village, determined to seize the land for themselves. Panic spread like wildfire. The people cried out to Chief Kwame for guidance. The warriors prepared for battle, but their numbers were few compared to the enemy's vast army. Even the wisest elders could not see a way to prevent what seemed inevitable. It was then that Jabari stepped forward. "My chief," he said, bowing before Kwame, "allow me to lead the effort to save our kingdom." The court fell silent. Some still doubted him, but the chief, who had spent weeks observing Jabari's strength and wisdom, nodded. "What is your plan?" Jabari stood tall, his eyes filled with quiet determination. "We will not win with brute strength alone. We must fight with strategy and wisdom." He called upon the hunters, the craftsmen, and the farmers, ordinary people who had never fought in battle. With their help, he set traps in the dense forests, dug trenches around the village, and prepared hidden weapons. He sent swift messengers to nearby allied kingdoms requesting aid. And then, as the enemy warriors advanced, Jabari did something unexpected. He walked alone to the battlefield, unarmed, and called for the enemy leader. The opposing general, a towering warrior with scars from countless battles, stepped forward, amused by Jabari's boldness. "You come unarmed to face my army?" he scoffed. "Are you surrendering?" Jabari met his gaze, unwavering. "I have come to offer you wisdom. You march toward death, not victory." The general laughed, but Jabari remained calm. He revealed the traps set in the jungle, the trenches that would break their charge, and the reinforcements that would soon arrive. "You may fight us," he said, "but you will not win. And if you lose, your people will suffer the same fate you sought to bring upon us." The general hesitated. He had underestimated Nyabaha. He had underestimated this man. With his forces at risk of being destroyed, he chose the only path that made sense. He ordered a retreat. As the enemy army withdrew, the people of Nyabaha erupted in cheers. They had been saved, not by war but by wisdom. Chief Kwame stood before his people, his heart full of pride and gratitude. He turned to Jabari, the man he had once doubted, and placed a hand on his shoulder. "You have done more than prove your worth," the chief declared. "You have saved us all. And for that, you deserve the greatest honor our kingdom can offer." Jabari had come to Nyabaha as a humble craftsman. Now he was its greatest hero. The sun rose over the kingdom of Nyabaha, its golden rays illuminating a land that had been saved from disaster. The people, once divided in their judgment of Jabari, now spoke his name with admiration and reverence. Chief Kwame stood at the heart of the village, watching his people celebrate. He had spent many nights pondering the fate of his daughter and his kingdom, but now, there was no doubt left in his heart. Jabari had proven himself, not through noble birth, not through wealth, but through wisdom, courage, and selflessness. Before the entire court, the chief called for silence. "I was once a man who judged by status," he said, his deep voice carrying across the gathered crowd. "I believed that only those of wealth and noble blood could be great. But I was wrong." He turned to Jabari, his expression one of pride and gratitude. "You, a man of humble beginnings, have shown us the true meaning of greatness. You did not seek power, yet you earned it. You did not seek honor, yet it follows you. You have saved this kingdom not once but twice, through strength, through wisdom, and through heart." The people erupted into cheers. Warriors raised their spears in salute, merchants and farmers clapped, and the elders nodded with approval. Then the chief turned to his daughter, Amani, who stood beside Jabari, her eyes filled with love and triumph. "I once doubted your choice," the chief admitted. "But today I see that you chose wisely. You saw the truth when I did not." He stepped forward, placing his hands upon both Jabari's and Amani's shoulders. "With my blessing you shall be wed, not as a craftsman and a princess, but as equals, as partners, as the future of this kingdom." The announcement sent a wave of excitement through the kingdom. A grand celebration was declared, a wedding unlike any Nyabaha had seen before. Messengers were sent to distant lands inviting rulers, nobles, and allies. The kingdom bustled with preparation as the people prepared to honor not only their princess but the man who had become their greatest hero. The grand wedding. When the day arrived, the kingdom shimmered with color. The trees were adorned with silk, the streets filled with music, and the aroma of roasted meats and sweet fruit filled the air. Dignitaries from neighboring kingdoms arrived in fine garments, their faces curious about the man who had captured the heart of a princess and won the respect of an entire kingdom. Jabari, dressed in rich, embroidered robes gifted by the finest weavers in Nyabaha, stood before the people. Though he was now respected by kings, he remained the same, humble, steady, and full of quiet strength. Amani, radiant in her flowing garments of gold and crimson, walked toward him, her eyes never leaving his. As they exchanged their vows beneath the great baobab tree, where they had once spoken of love in secret, the people cheered. The drums thundered, the flutes sang, and the dancers moved like the wind, celebrating a love that had conquered doubt, opposition, and fate itself. Even Lord Baraka, the noble who had once sought to destroy Jabari, was forced to bow in defeat. His schemes had failed, and now he watched as the man he had tried to ruin stood before him, not just as Amani's husband but as the kingdom's most honored son. As the night descended, the festivities continued. Feasts were shared, tales were told, and elders spoke of the day when a simple craftsman had risen above all expectations. Jabari's name was etched into the history of Nyabaha, not as a poor man who married a princess, but as a legend. And so, his story became one that would be told for generations to come. Years passed since the grand celebration, and the kingdom of Nyabaha flourished under the rule of King Jabari and Queen Amani. Their reign was marked by kindness, wisdom, and an unbreakable bond that had been forged through trials and triumphs. The couple ruled not through fear or force, but through love and mutual respect. The people of Nyabaha, once divided by their judgments of Jabari's humble origins, had come to understand a profound truth. True greatness was not defined by wealth or noble blood but by the strength of one's character, the wisdom of one's actions, and the depth of one's heart. Jabari's leadership was nothing like the harsh, distant rulers of neighboring kingdoms. He listened to his people, worked alongside them, and never let the title of king separate him from the everyday struggles of the common folk. His decisions were always guided by the desire to protect the land and its people, ensuring that everyone, regardless of their status, had a voice. Amani, though a princess by birth, never carried herself with the arrogance that often accompanied royal titles. She was known for her compassion, her intelligence, and her ability to connect with people from all walks of life. Together, Jabari and Amani formed a perfect partnership, blending the wisdom of the crown with the kindness of their hearts. Under their leadership, the kingdom experienced an era of unprecedented peace. Neighboring tribes, once hostile, now offered alliances and trade flourished across borders. The fields grew green again, the rivers flowed with life, and the people prospered. But it was not just the land that thrived. The spirit of the people had changed too. The love between Jabari and Amani became the foundation of the kingdom's values. It was said that their love was a beacon, illuminating the path for those who sought to live with honor and humility. The elders told stories of the way Jabari had chosen not to claim power, not to use his royal lineage as a means of domination, but instead to lead with wisdom. They spoke of how Amani had seen greatness in him when others could not, trusting in his heart rather than his status. Their love story was passed down from generation to generation as a lesson for young men and women, teaching them that true worth is not found in material possessions or titles, but in the strength of one's character, the kindness of one's actions, and the wisdom one carries through life. Years turned into decades and the kingdom continued to flourish. But as time does, it brought change. Jabari and Amani grew older, their once youthful faces now marked with the passage of time. However, their love remained as strong as ever, and their wisdom continued to guide the kingdom they had built together. One day, a young woman named Zuri, the daughter of a respected merchant, began to rise in the kingdom. Though she had no noble blood, she possessed something that was becoming increasingly rare: wisdom beyond her years, a heart full of compassion, and an unshakable desire to serve the people. Zuri had grown up hearing the stories of Jabari and Amani, and as she listened to the elders recount their reign, something stirred within her. Zuri had witnessed her village struggling with a series of challenges: famine, illness, and a lack of water. While many people turned to the wealthy and powerful for help, Zuri decided to take matters into her own hands. She worked alongside the farmers, the healers, and the villagers, organizing efforts to collect food, bring medicine, and create irrigation systems to help the crops grow. Her leadership was not born of command or authority but of genuine care for those around her. When the villagers were faced with a major threat, a rival group that sought to take control of the water supply, Zuri stood at the front lines, organizing peaceful negotiations and defending the rights of her people. Her wisdom, combined with her fierce determination, earned her the respect of not only the villagers but also the local rulers. In time, Zuri's reputation spread far and wide. She became a symbol of the values that Jabari and Amani had instilled in the kingdom: wisdom, compassion, and the understanding that true power came from serving others. It was said that Zuri's rise to leadership was the fulfillment of a prophecy passed down through the ages, that another leader, humble and wise, would rise when the kingdom was in need. And just as Jabari had done before her, Zuri began to lead with heart, ensuring that the kingdom would continue to prosper for generations to come. The legacy of Jabari and Amani lived on in Zuri, and in the hearts of all who had been touched by their reign. Their love story became more than just a tale of romance. It was a guiding principle for generations that followed. The people of Nyabaha learned that greatness was not about titles or wealth, but about the choices one made, the integrity one upheld, and the love one shared with others. As the years passed, Jabari and Amani's story became more than just a legend. It became the foundation of a new way of life, one that transcended status, wealth, and power. Their legacy remained a living testament to the power of love, wisdom, and humility, forever changing the way the people of Nyabaha and beyond understood what it meant to be truly great. And so, the kingdom continued to thrive, with each generation carrying forward the lessons of the past, forever guided by the values of love, wisdom, and kindness that Jabari and Amani had instilled in their land.